Welcome to Because the Beatles, the podcast about the Beatles, everything about the Beatles, 24/8. I'm Erica.
And I'm Allison. And before we start, be sure to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, or stream us on Spotify. And if you're enjoying Because the Beatles, feel free to leave us a preferably 5-star review so other Beatle maniacs can find us.
Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. BC the Beatles everywhere. We'll be posting videos, photos, and more from this episode and beyond. So come join us online. And you can also email us at bcthebeatles@gmail.com.
Speaking of Facebook, we recently surpassed 1,000 Beatle maniacs on our Facebook page. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. That is so amazing. And the level of engagement we have is so great. Like, you guys are the best with like sharing and writing back to us and talking to us. It's awesome.
Yeah, I always love to like go on there on my lunch break or whatever, work, and just twizzle around and see what people are talking about. And it's, yeah, you guys are really, really fun. And it's cool to, meet new Beatle people all the time.
For sure.
Yeah. So what's new, Erica? It's been a minute.
It has. What is new? Okay. I went to Mexico for a little bit and it was relaxing and sunny and beachy and lovely.
That's amazing. That sounds ideal.
How about you?
Let's see. I've been in LA living my life, working. So not as exciting as Mexico, but it's got its merits.
I'm sure some of the things you were doing were way more exciting than what I was doing, given where you work.
Well, there's a little bit of that, and I'll talk about that in a minute, because I want to give a plug to exciting shit going on in my day-to-day job, which I love so much.
Awesome. Well, before we get there, we just have one more business item for you. A reminder that we'll be at the Beatles at the Ridge Festival in Walnut Ridge, Arkansas, the weekend of September 20th.
Yeah, and we will have merch with us, which we have never debuted before. This will be the first time we'll have merch, and we'll be recording a live episode right there in front of everybody at Beatles at the Ridge. And, we're very excited. This is something we've been wanting to do for a long time.
We've been hearing so much about this from Beatle friends. People have gone to the festival, Beatles fans, and how much fun it is, and it's small and it's intimate. The cool thing is that everybody who's there is only focused on one thing. So when a certain speaker is on, there aren't 16 other panels and concerts and things. So everybody is giving each other attention, and it's going to be really intimate, and I think we're going to learn a lot and meet a lot of new people. It's going to be fun.
It's cool because nobody has to make a choice of, do I go to this concert versus the panel versus like going shopping. It's very streamlined, which is a real virtue. But, we're really excited because a lot of our Beatle pals are going to be there. Mm-hmm. Jude Kessler, who you guys heard on our John Lennon Sinner or Saint episode, is one of the organizers. So she will, of course, be there. And we just heard that our pal Sarah Schmid from Meet the Beatles for Real is going to be there too. So we're super excited.
Yeah, we've got to have her on one day soon.
Oh, I know. I don't know. I know. Why have we not? That's insane to me. But maybe we can hook up something at the Ridge.
Yeah, we should do a live interview with her. It'll be fun. And speaking of the Ridge, the theme of this festival is Beatles merchandise and memorabilia. So we've got a show planned that covers the good, the bad, and the ugly of the sordid story behind Beatles' early merchandise.
Yes, definitely. And you can expect a lot of Brian talk. I know it's very shocking because we never talk about Brian on this podcast.
No, we don't defend him at all.
Yeah, I know. We're going to make an exception this time, and we're going to talk a little bit about Brian Epstein. So it should be fun because there's certainly, Beatles merchandise runs the gamut. So there's certainly a lot to talk about.
But before that festival, Allison has one more announcement about a festival next month.
Hell yeah. So I might be, and this is looking likely, but I will probably be at the Chicago Fest for Beatles fans, which is one of our favorite events every year. They hold it 2 times a year. This is the Chicago Fest in the summer, the weekend of August 9th through the 11th. I'll probably be spending most of my time in the marketplace, which I've never actually done this before. Been there as a seller. I'm usually sitting on panels or doing interviews, whatever, but this time I'm going to be representing my day job, which is Rhino Records.
And what exactly are you selling?
Well, I'm so glad you asked, Erica. Like it's something that is very near and dear to me, something that I worked on for months. These are our Woodstock re-releases, and I hate calling them re-releases because a lot of this stuff has been out for the first time, and the packages are beautiful, and the music sounds amazing. It sounds like you're in the middle of the festival. I'm just obsessed with these products and these packages, and we're all just so proud. The whole team worked so hard. So I'm really excited to bring three of the configurations to the fest, I hope, and share it with my Fest family. And friends and any of you that come, like you have to come see them and hold them and take a look.
Well, that's so cool. And congratulations on it. I can't wait to see it. I hope I get to join you at the fest. We don't know.
Me too.
Maybe.
Guys, we need to get Erica to come to the fest so that we can hang out together. Some people think we record together, which is just a testament to your audio editing.
You just cut out the whole time you said that, which is hilarious. And I feel like I need to keep that in.
Irony. What just happened?
It was really funny.
That's hilarious. Oh my God, please keep that in.
I think I'm gonna.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody's going to think we record together anymore. Yeah, actually, like, if y'all don't know, Erica's in Brooklyn, I'm in LA, so.
Yeah, we don't get to see each other that often.
Yeah, so 2 things to look forward to, Beatles at the Bridge and the Chicago Fest for Beatles fans. And we've got something exciting starting this episode, which is that we're restructuring a little bit. So we decided instead of going in depth with the news, because before we even get there, it's out of date thanks to social media and all that kind of stuff. We're going to instead talk about general goings on in the Beatles world and our lives as they pertain to the Beatles. A lot of our lives revolve around the Beatles. We're very lucky. We have a lot to talk about.
We do. And one last announcement. Don't forget, our next Beatles book club selection is A Cellar Full of Noise by the one and only Brian Epstein. So please pick up your copy where you can for summer reading. We'll be doing that within the month, and we'll be putting out a call on socials when it's close. So if you have any questions about the book, anything you want to discuss with us, please let us know. So we're going to be doing announcements like we just did at the top of the show, but then we're going to go into our new segment, which we're calling Beatlefields.
Beatlefields, yep. Say that 3 times.
Beatlefields.
Wait, if you say Beatlefields 3 times, does a beetle appear? And if so, which beetle?
It's probably the Beatles from yesterday. This is where they're going to show up, the ones who disappeared after the blackout.
Oh, interesting. Oh, it's a whole vortex kind of deal.
It is.
Amazing. Anyway.
So, Beatlefields, followed, of course, by our episode's main topic and still closing out with our latest Beatles obsession.
So, yeah, let's get into our Beatlefields.
Why don't you start? You have quite the story to rant about this week.
So, for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure everybody listening does, Paul closed out his Freshen Up tour a week ago at Dodger Stadium here in LA. So my usual practice when going to Paul McCartney concerts is I wait till the last minute to get a ticket, because usually, the prices drop on StubHub and you end up getting a really good seat for next to nothing. Like we went to see Paul at Nassau Coliseum a couple of years ago.
It was so last minute, like 5 days, I think, for 5th row.
Yeah, it was insane. And so it's like, and I've done that a few times and it's always been fine. And then this time, for some reason, it could be because it was the closing night. It could be because it was LA. I don't know. But the tickets were not going down. Even the day of the show, there were $6,000 floor seats, which I've never seen. Like a couple grand, but $6,000. It's insane. So the day of the show, yeah, I know. So the day of the show, I didn't have a ticket. And I was starting to, look at StubHub, but also like Craigslist. And so I found a ticket on Craigslist from a guy and started texting him. And I told him, because I'm very cautious. I consider myself a smart person that, wouldn't get scammed. So I thought I could rig this whole thing, this foolproof system where I told this guy, I'll pay you, but after we walk into the stadium together. So I met up with this guy at Dodger Stadium and his 2 kids, and we're walking to the gate. And sure enough, the tickets are fake, but it was great because I didn't pay him anything. So I literally just gave the ticket back, walked away. And my next course of action was to find, somebody selling a ticket outside the stadium. Nobody was selling a ticket. That never happens at concerts, but this time nobody was selling a ticket. So
that's crazy.
I know, right? So I dumbly got on the phone with this other guy from Craigslist who I'd been talking to earlier in the day. And he sounded sketchy, but I was sort of at this point I could hear Paul going on. Mm-hmm. And so I was very just stressed out, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make a last ditch effort. And so this guy fed me a story about how he has these great floor seats because he works for AT&T and he has, season tickets for the Dodgers and all this. And I said, well, look, I got scammed. I'm very wary, I'm nervous to do this. Can you send me the ticket and I'll walk through the gate. I'll keep you on the phone and then I'll pay you when I get to the other side. And he was sort of like, what? That's crazy. I would never do that. And so I was like, well, and he said, well, look, if you want to, send me $150 of the total like 300 whatever for this ticket now, and then keep me on the phone when you walk through, and I'll trust you to send me the other half. And I was like, okay, fine. I took a chance, whatever. And so I sent him the payment, and then I got scammed, and I just started to cry.
Oh my God.
I sat outside Dodger Stadium and just cried and cried and cried and cried. And I could hear the show. I heard part of, most of the show, or part of the show. And I just got on the like Dodger bus and went back to, Union Station, took the subway home. I'm telling you this story because this happens. And like I said, I consider myself a smart person that this doesn't happen to, but it does. It happens to fucking everybody. It's happened to people I know that are very savvy people. It's just a thing. So Beatle fans, number one, be careful, be careful. Number two, if this happens to you, forgive yourself, because I'm having a hard time with that. Because I'm very upset that I miss Paul. I have to believe that I will see Paul again in concert. So this will not be the last time, but
no,
it's been a rough effing week. I got to tell you, a rough effing week.
You can't blame yourself though, because you love Paul, you want to see Paul. Usually these people have something to sell.
Yeah.
And, it usually works out. Yeah.
I've never seen a show like this where there are no tickets outside the stadium. I'm happy for everybody that got to go. I saw some great pictures and videos, but, this one is going to be one of the ones that goes down in history where I'm like, God damn it, that I could have been there.
Even though he said this was the last day to freshen up, I do think he's going to do a series of fall dates, because he never misses the Northeast. This is where he's, lived, and Linda was from, and Nancy's from. This is just where he plays.
And he didn't play New York on this run, right?
Not at all. He didn't come any closer to us than Lexington, Kentucky. That was the closest he came.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see him not doing like a few dates at Madison Square Garden at some point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm definitely going to fly out for that. Yes. And we're going to get good tickets.
So it won't be the last time you're going to see the next leg of this tour. Maybe he'll call it something other than Freshen Up. It would be awesome.
That would be really good. I would appreciate that.
Yes.
I'd really appreciate that. I just want to mention something else really quick to kind of like end my Beatle feels on a more positive note. So I went to Palm Springs for 4th of July weekend for a solo vacation, and I decided to go on a little drive through the desert, just spend the day going down to the Salton Sea, which I recommend. But, the whole day, me and my car. And I decided to listen to all the Beatles, like Spotify playlists, like this is George Harrison, this is John Lennon, this is et cetera, et cetera. And I sort of just decided to think about the Beatles. I know that's crazy. That's crazy for me to think about the Beatles.
You? Really?
I know. It's just like whatever. But I thought about like figuring out who is my favorite Beatle. I had this heart to heart with myself in the desert. And I think I'm moving more towards getting John back as my favorite Beatle, which feels good to me.
Okay.
He was always my fave. I'm still kind of like moving towards that. But, I also had some Brian thoughts, even crazier. I even posted about it on Facebook, but something that really struck me is this month, actually about like 10 days ago from when we're recording this, I was the exact year, month, and day old that Brian was when he died. And yeah, I'm crazy for figuring that out, but whatever. And it had a profound sort of moment in my trip. And since then, it was very interesting to sort of sit out in the desert and think about all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it was, it was interesting. I didn't come to any deep conclusions, but it was just something that, who wouldn't go to the desert and just think about the Beatles the whole time, really?
Sounds like a vision quest to me.
A vision quest. Well, I didn't do any ayahuasca this trip.
Beatles are enough. You don't even need it.
The Beatles are my ayahuasca.
Oh my God. Making that's going to be the swag at the Ridge. Beatles are my ayahuasca.
The Beatles my ayahuasca. Oh my God. We have like a sweat tent at the Ridge, like where we just come in and have like Beatle visions.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
I hear it's really hot and humid.
Okay, so the heat will do it to you. Then you play a couple of backwards tape loops, stuff like that. And we'll make it happen. And then you get a bumper sticker. The Beatles are my ayahuasca.
That sounds Yeah, exactly. And then you're like the coolest person ever. People see your bumper sticker and be like, oh my God, that person is rad.
Yeah, and that's why you have to go to the Ridge.
Exactly. Because now we're going to have a Beatles sweat tent. It's great.
Hashtag
Put that
Beatles sweat
on
tent.
our to-do list. Yes, exactly. Anyway, Erica, what are your Beatle feels this episode?
My Beatle fields are the best combination of worlds colliding in my life that I ever did hear about, which is the news that came out just last week that Paul McCartney is writing the musical version of the 1946 Frank Capra film, It's a Wonderful Life.
Yes.
I'm a musical theater kid. I have a degree in theater. I love musical theater. So Paul writing a musical is like an orgy of all kinds of different obsessions just kind of slamming themselves into each other.
I like that wordplay. I like the visualization of that word game that you just played with your description there.
Thank you. Thank you. I like to say Paul and orgy in the same paragraph whenever I can.
Yeah. It's a good visual.
So Paul McCartney has teamed up with the writer Lee Hall, who wrote Rocket Man, the recent movie, and Billy Elliot, and producer Bill Kenwright, who seems to have some experience in this area since he worked with Elton John on the West End production of Billy Elliot the Musical from 2005. So if you don't know that the movie, it's came out in 1946, and it featured Jimmy Stewart as George Bailey. He was on the brink of suicide, and just as he was about to end his life, he's visited by his guardian angel, Clarence Oddbody. Clarence shows George how much better off his loved ones are and his community is to having him in their lives by showing him what the life was like if he had never been born. And so it's a nice feel-good story. It happens around Christmas, so people often watch it in the holiday season. And nobody has turned it into a musical until now, and that's going to be Paul McCartney. This, I guess, came about after Bill Kenwright wanted to produce this for a while, and he finally got the rights in 2016, and he asked Paul McCartney, of all people, if he would be interested in writing the music. So Paul, it seems, wasn't totally sure. Like, he's never written a musical before. So Bill said from Paul's initial demos, he said about them, out of the blue, I get an email from Paul asking my thoughts on his first stab at an opening song. He wasn't sure, but wanted to know what Lee and I thought of it. I played the demo. Lee and I were unanimous. Our hero was a musical theater writer. I'm so excited. It sounds so good.
This is definitely perfect for you.
Yeah. And they keep gushing about it. Bill Kenwright also said, it's been an extraordinary journey. On every song, I experienced Paul's unique gift of melody and composition. It's musical theater, but it's always McCartney. I'm so excited.
Oh, delicious. Delicious.
I mean, this show itself, it couldn't be more of a Paul show. Like, if you're going to say, what classic movie should Paul McCartney make into a musical, it would totally be this. It's kind of twee, and it's a bit too saccharine at times, but just right in that spot. So it's perfect. It's perfect. But not everybody is happy as I am. The Guardian's Stuart Jeffries, I don't know who this guy is, but he wrote this op-ed piece called Why Paul McCartney It's a Wonderful Life musical is Going to Be Terrible.
Oh my God.
Where he says the nightmare scenario is that he has brought to the musical table not the genius of Hey Jude, Here, There, and Everywhere, and Norwegian Wood, which I don't know if anybody knows.
That's not even a fucking Paul song.
Not a Paul song. But
oh my God.
Yeah. But the creative acumen responsible for the frog chorus, Mull of Kintyre, and there's no easy way to say this, Wonderful Christmas Time, the very acumen that on a personal note in December 1979 made me contemplate disowning British citizenship and living in Vanuatu.
Oh my Christ.
You know what, Stuart Jeffries? Go live in Vanuatu. You're an idiot.
Yeah, we don't need you in civilization, buddy.
First, learn your authorship. Norwegian Wood had nothing to do with Paul.
Yeah, and honestly, he's gonna pluck 3 songs out of Paul's catalog. He's gonna pick "Hey Jude," "Hey There," and "Here, There, and Everywhere" in Norwegian Wood. Like, period. Even if Paul had written Norwegian Wood, like, wouldn't you pick out like "Let It Be" or some shit? Right? I don't get it.
It's so ridiculous. And also, Mull of Kintyre is amazing.
And people will trot out "Wonderful Christmas Time" any chance they get.
Mm-hmm. I defended it on this show last Christmas time, and I will stand by that. So this guy sucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, The Guardian, like, eye roll. Anyway.
Why does a newspaper have an anti-Paul McCartney stance?
I don't know. I mean, The Guardian is practically a tabloid. Like, they're just, I don't know. It's all
ridiculous.
clickbait, I guess.
It sucks.
I mean, this is what our non-friend Stuart wants us to do, is talk about his article and debate it.
That's true.
He's stupid. He is stupid. Case closed. He's stupid.
Yes, but enough of him. What do you think about this? Are you excited for it, or is it like,
It's surprising that Paul hasn't done this before. I think it's such a natural fit for him to write a musical. Like, that seems logical. You know, he's written, obviously, like, you know, Ocean's Kingdom. That was what it's called, right?
Yeah, the ballet, and then Ecce Corimeum, and the other symphonies.
Exactly. So he's written, like, all of that. So I don't understand, like, how it's taken him this long to do this. But I read something where Paul was quoted as saying, like, it all started with an email. And my first thought is, like, how did that guy get Paul's email?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. And also, I didn't realize that Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life had a last name until right now. I had no idea.
Me either.
But yeah, I think this will be great. I would love to see this. I'm stoked. More Paul is always a good thing.
Yes. More Paul. Bring on the Paul.
For real.
I do feel like, you know, yeah, he's put out masterpieces and he's put out crap. But when you are working on a musical, you're working in a team environment and you have creative partners. And when he works with a creative partner, he doesn't put out crap. You know, when he has somebody that
so
kind of
true.
checks him, like Chaos and Creation, when, who was he working with? Nigel Godrich, I think?
I think so, yeah.
And he said that he wasn't afraid to tell Paul when he thought that things could be different. And that, I think, is one of the best albums in his more recent history.
Definitely. I mean, you go back to, like, Flowers in the Dirt with Elvis Costello, obviously, and Lennon McCartney.
Yes.
You know, he does really work great in a team environment.
So, yay, musical. Awesome. Excited. I cannot wait to see what happens next. It sounds like he's pretty close to having a full draft of it.
That's crazy. When does he have time to do this shit, honestly?
I don't know. His brain. Like, I'd love to be able to, like, see, like, be a fly on the wall inside of his brain. I'd love to know how it works, because he never stops. He never stops thinking and creating. It's crazy. Well, that was this week's Beatle Feels. What do we think? I liked it.
I think it felt good. I think, the Beatle Feels felt good. Yeah.
Let us know what you think. We'll have plenty of more feels. And, of course, if we see any latest news that's really pressing, we'll post it on our socials. And we can talk about it there.
Onwards and upwards.
Yes. Just one note that we did record this a few weeks ago. So when Tommy talks about the moon landing gala, it actually did happen on July 13th. And we'll be posting some clips on our socials so you don't miss it.
Sometimes I know I make you mad when I don't pay you enough attention. And I just forget to even
Well, truly, our guest today needs no introduction. His is one of the most iconic voices of the 1960s with hits like Hanky Panky, I Think We're Alone Now, Mony Mony, Crimson and Clover, Draggin the Line. I could go on, but the short version is he's got 23 gold records, 9 platinum albums, 100 million records sold worldwide, and 32 Billboard Hot 100 chart hits. Today, he's going to talk to us about his first new album in 10 years, and of course, the Beatles. So welcome, Tommy James, to Because the Beatles. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be talking with you.
Thank you for coming. We've had some amazing guests on Because the Beatles, but we've never had a true Beatles peer before, that you actually shared charts with them. Very exciting. Very exciting. So you, of course, have shared the top of the singles charts with the Beatles many times, plus the Crimson and Clover album was in the top 10 at the same time as the White Album. And Crimson and Clover is turning 50 this year.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, I must say that I've been very, very lucky and very fortunate and very blessed by the good Lord and the fans for the kind of longevity we've had. And I mean that sincerely.
Yeah, and speaking of turning 50, you know, this year is so rich with 50th anniversaries. You know, of course, we've got the Moonshot anniversary, and I hear you're going to be performing out here in California, where I live, at the Reagan Library, right?
That's right. We were a few weeks ago, we actually got a phone call from Buzz Aldrin and his assistant to my manager, Carol Ross, asking if I would come and play for the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11. And there's going to be quite a gala, I understand, at the Reagan Library. I'm so honored to have been asked. It just turns out that Crystal Blue Persuasion was the #1 record when they landed on the moon for the first time.
Oh, wow.
I didn't realize that. I had forgotten that, and I think that's really, really spectacular. So I'm very, very honored and thrilled to be doing this. I truly am.
Yeah, and I imagine at that time, too, they were probably playing it aboard the space shuttle. I was watching a documentary, I think, last weekend. They were talking about the different songs they remember listening to, being beamed up from the mission control. Like, I think they were talking about the fifth dimension and all that. So I'm sure some Tommy James and the Shondells were in there somewhere.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm really happy to be doing this.
Another big one, a big anniversary, is Woodstock. And we know you were invited to play, but turned it down?
That's right. We were in Hawaii at the time, literally at the foot of Diamond Head, staying in a beautiful Spanish mansion in between two dates that we were doing. So I get this call from my secretary in New York, who was asked by, the way she put it to me, she says, Tommy, listen, Artie Kornfeld was up. Artie was a producer, and he was also a friend of mine, and he was one of the creators of Woodstock, one of the promoters. And she said, yeah, Artie was up and asked if you could come up to this pig farm in upstate New York and play for this big gig. I said, what? A pig farm in upstate New York? Is that what you're asking? Fly 6,000 miles, leave paradise to play a pig farm? I said, well, I'll tell you what, if I'm not there, you can start without us. And they did.
Oh,
and by Friday of that week, when we saw all the cars on the freeway, they shut down the New York freeway. We know we messed up really bad.
Well, they didn't quite sell it in an appealing way, a pig farm.
Yeah, right. So at any rate, I always regret it. It was one of my great regrets. And about 5 years ago, we finally made it up to Woodstock, up to the Bethel Park Arena. And I said, yeah, after, I think it was like 45 years, I said, traffic was murder.
Nice.
I think I was at that show, Tommy.
Is that right? Really?
I was. Yeah. I remember.
You think you were there? Wait a minute. You said you think you were there at Woodstock?
Well, I wasn't at Woodstock, but I know that for a fact. But
you mean the show
sure
we
at your
were?
show. Yeah.
Yes.
If we're thinking of the same one. But it was great. And I remember the whole finally getting to play Woodstock, which was great. It came full circle after all. And you got to play the quote unquote pig farm.
Right.
There we go. So, Tommy, let's talk a little bit of Beatles here. Everybody kind of has a story about the first time they heard the Beatles. Do you remember, where you were, what you were doing when you first became aware of the Beatles?
Well, I worked when I was in high school in a record shop. And so I got the full impact when Capitol Records was breaking the Beatles. What I remember was it was right after the Kennedy assassination. And so forever in my mind, those two events, the Kennedy assassination and the breaking of the Beatles, were sort of like this happening at the very same time. Mm. And so those two events are forever etched in my mind. And I remember when I first heard I Want to Hold Your Hand, their first record, and the flip side, I saw her standing there. I was also in a little band called the Shondells at the time, playing locally, and I remember how simple those two songs sounded until I went to go and try to play them. Their chords were very sophisticated. They were very tough. She Loves You was almost impossible to play because it was so difficult. It sounds so simple, and their stuff was very sophisticated, and that really impressed me. So from that point on, I learned everything I could by the Beatles on the guitar, and we actually played their stuff at the dances I played at. I remember our third set, we'd go and put Beatle wigs on and Beatle boots, and we'd come back out, and all the girls would scream. As soon as we took off the wigs and the Beatle boots, they didn't care who we were. At any rate, that's my most fundamental memory of the Beatles. And also, I remember when they had the top 5 records all at the same time. I don't think it ever happened again.
No, I don't think that record has ever been broken.
It's really amazing. And of course, about 2 years ago, I got a chance to meet Paul for the first time, Paul and Ringo, at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I did a show, Joan Jett and I did Crimson and Clover, and Ringo was being inducted into the Hall of Fame by Paul. So I had a chance to talk with both of them and take a few shots. And it was great to meet them after all these years. I had met John back in '71 when he and I were both getting BMI awards. And this was at the BMI dinner in New York. And he was getting an award for Imagine, and I was getting it for Draggin the Line. And we sat next to each other. Our tables were next to each other, and we had a great conversation. Also, George wrote a bunch of songs for me with a group that he was producing called Grapefruit. Back in the late 60s, Mony Mony was #1 in England. And so George wrote these songs for me and the Shondells and delivered them in New York to my manager's office. And I never had a chance to properly thank him for doing that, but I still have a George Harrison tape laying around here somewhere in my basement of several songs that he wrote for us. And I was very honored that he did that.
Oh, that's lovely.
That's amazing. Yeah. Did you ever get some feedback or hear maybe through the grapevine about how much George loved your renditions of his songs, or any feedback from that side of the pond?
Well, there was a couple of things he had said on interviews that were very flattering, but basically these songs, unfortunately, we were already doing the Crimson and Clover album, so there was a big difference between Mony Mony and Crimson and Clover style-wise, and all the tunes that were on this tape that he gave me all sounded like Mony Mony, so we never really did any of those songs, and I always regretted that we never did that. I never really had a chance to properly thank him, so that was a big regret.
That's really interesting. So was that around, so you said you were recording Crimson and Clover at that time, so was that around 1969?
That was late 68.
Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. It's interesting because by that time, of course, the Beatles themselves had gotten pretty psychedelic, and Crimson and Clover is such a psychedelic kind of masterpiece. I love it. I think it's one of my favorite albums of that era. But I imagine,
well, thank you.
Yeah, but I imagine their turn psychedelic. Did that influence or impact the sound of Crimson and Clover as an album?
Well, that's true. Everybody was chasing the Beatles in one way or another.
So as a Beatles fan yourself, do you have a favorite Beatle?
Wow, that's a tough one. Wow, that's really a hard one. I think Strawberry Fields has to be my favorite. I remember the first time I heard it, I remember hearing Happy Together by the Turtles and Strawberry Fields by the Beatles right next to each other on the radio, and thinking, my God, what a difference in music, pop music. And I realized that at that moment, the Beatles were doing something totally different. And this was when the great divide happened between, I guess you could say, AM top 40 pop and FM, as they called it, underground records, progressive album rock at the time. Those two songs represented that great chasm, that great splitting of pop music.
And I guess if you had to round out your Beatles song top 5, we've got Strawberry Fields. What else would you put in there?
Oh, my. Well, do you know, I just want to say one of my all-time favorites was when they got back together, when the three of them, when Paul, Ringo, and George got back together and recorded Real Love. I thought it was an incredible record. Going back to, the 60s with the Beatles, I'd have to say Penny Lane is one of them. I'd have to say Come Together is one. And probably something, It Won't Be Long. I love dearly.
Interesting. I like those. I like those picks. Yeah. So you seem like a more of like a later Beatles kind of listener, right? And then
Well,
we have.
The truth is, I loved everything they did. Gee, if you give me 6, I'd have to say, please, please me.
We can give you 6. We'll give you please, please. Those are great picks. I definitely love It Won't Be Long too. That's one of my favorites.
What was so fascinating about the Beatles was how simple their music sounded and how truly sophisticated it was. If you listen just as a musician, particularly a guitar player, or even on piano, to their chord changes, very sophisticated and intricate chord changes they did. And they made music that sounded so simple and yet was so complex. And I just think that that shows their genius. And I'm not even sure they realized how good they were.
No, I don't think so. And I don't think they realized how complex they were being either. I mean, even to this day, I don't think anybody's figured out exactly what that first chord on A Hard Day's Night really is.
Yeah, well, we did it, but it's a combination of 3 different chords. And when you go to play it, you can very easily cut yourself on your guitar strings and bleed.
Oh, God. No.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous chord.
It is.
Sounds like it.
That's why nobody can figure it out. Well, I think honestly the same thing could be said for some of the Shondell songs, Tommy. I think of things like "Love's Closing In on Me," which is one of my favorites, and that's such a straight up pop boppy ditty, but it's like it has so many layers. It almost has like sort of a wall of sound feel to it when you listen to it.
Thank you. You know, I'm a nut for pop music. I really am. I love pop music. I love commercial music. I love music people can dance to, and I love music that you can do great harmonies to. I call it complex simplicity, and I love doing music like that.
Do you have anybody that you really admire outside of the Beatles? Like, who are some of your favorites?
From the 60s?
Yeah, or even now, like, what kind of music do you love?
Well, you know, I'm a jazz nut, too. I love smooth jazz, and I love contemporary jazz. I think there's a lot of geniuses doing smooth jazz right now. I'm trying to think. My favorite songs from, I'm doing a radio show now on Sirius XM every Sunday, so I get a chance to play a lot of the music that I always loved, but you never heard on the radio very much.
Oh, that's nice, and that's on 60s on 6, right?
That's correct. But of the big hits, I gotta say, certainly of ours, I think my favorite song that were hits from my catalog would be Crystal Blue Persuasion is probably my favorite. It's the song I love to sing the most. I think Mony Mony is the song I love to perform the most because there's not much oxygen left in the room. I love all different kinds of music.
And obviously we'd love to talk about your album.
Yes.
So tell us about Alive.
This was an album that was over 2 years in the making. It's as you say, our first studio album in over 10 years. It's called Alive, and if there's any theme to the album, it's that there's no theme. It is musically just all over the place. We go from contemporary songs that are new to we did a remake of I Think We're Alone Now, which is acoustic, very slow, very different from the original record. It's going to be in our new movie, Me, the Mob, and the Music, and it also is going to be the next single that we release. I can't believe we're going to re-release I Think We're Alone Now 53 years later. It's going to be amazing. And we also did a remake of Draggin the Line, which Tone Z and Stevie Van Zandt are on and did a great job. And a whole bunch of new material that I've been wanting to do. A lot of this stuff are songs that I've been wanting to redo for a long time. So it's a real labor of love, and I hope everybody digs it. The very first single is called So Beautiful, and that was released digitally and jumped on the charts. I went top 20 on Billboard AC charts, adult contemporary, and was the first time that we were on the charts in a lot of years, so it felt really good.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm curious about how, you say that you wanted to remake these songs for a while. What made, I think We're Alone Now and Draggin the Line, what makes you want to redo those? A lot of people would be like, oh, they're perfect the first time.
Well, both songs we did in a very different way. The I Think We're Alone Now record, we just have had so much reaction to that. Is slow, acoustic, very, very different from the original record. And all I can say is that we just turned the record inside out. And I hope everybody digs it. Draggin the Line actually has some rap in it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that.
by Tone Z, who did an incredible job. He's so talented and did a great rap in Draggin the Line, and it really fits the song and it works great. And Stevie Van Zandt played guitar and just did an incredible solo right in the middle of the record. He's an amazing guitar player, Stevie. Gene Cornish was also, from the Rascals, was also on the album. He played guitar on the title track, Alive. And I'm Alive was also a song from the original Crimson and Clover album.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. Yeah, immediately I thought of that when I saw the title of the new record.
Yeah.
So kind of full circle 50 years later.
So it's all over the place. So I just hope everybody digs it.
So I noticed on your website that you have quite a few tour dates scheduled. Are you going to be playing a lot of the new album on tour?
We're going to be doing at least 2 tracks from the new album. You got to play the hits, of course, when you're out there with the public. But, I think you got to spoon feed them the new stuff, too. That's what being an artist is all about, making people stretch a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I saw on your list, too, of special interest, I think, to some of our listeners is that you'll be at the Abbey Road on the River Festival next year in May 2020 in Louisville. So that's an exciting thing.
That's true. That's right.
That's a great festival. It's a lot of fun.
I forgot about that one. That's right. That's a year ahead. That's right.
So happy to see it there. Definitely.
Yeah, never too early.
If anybody would like to check out our tour dates, you can just come to TommyJames.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So we're sort of all over social media. And it's so great today that you can communicate with the whole planet. Never could do that before.
Yeah, totally. And we'll be sure to share all those links too on our socials. So, you can find Tommy and check him out. Tommy, you mentioned just briefly about Me, the Mob, and the Music, which I think the very first time you and I ever talked, I think it was probably about 10 years ago when you released the book. And now I'm so curious to see where the film is.
The story of Me, the Mob, and the Music, which was our book, was an autobiography with about 2/3 of it devoted to our very crazy and often scary relationship with Roulette Records, the label we had most of our hits on. And the reason it was scary and tumultuous was because, unbeknownst to us when we signed with Roulette was a front for the Genovese crime family in New York, and we didn't know that. We learned that incrementally. So that's what the book is about, as our journey with Roulette. And it was, we were lucky to make it out of there in one piece, and I mean that. And so the movie is being made. It's being produced by Barbara DeFina, who produced Goodfellas and Casino and Hugo a couple years ago with Martin Scorsese, The Color of Money, the remake of Cape Fear. She just is a brilliant producer, and the screenplay has been done. I'm getting a hell of an education in all this. I'm going to be doing a lot of the technical advising, and I'm also going to be co-producer on the movie. So we've just picked our director, and it's going to be a female. I think it's going to be very interesting that all of the major technical people in the movie are going to be female, because my manager is a great gal too, Carol Ross. So there's going to be a lot of women involved in this project, and I think it makes for better communication. Everybody likes everybody. That's a huge big deal when doing a project like this. Everybody really are friends. So it's going to be fun watching all this come together. The very next thing they're going to be doing is casting. And a lot of times I get asked, Tom, are you going to do a cameo in the movie? And I think I probably will. I think I'm going to be a corpse.
Oh, my God.
No.
The lines are easy to memorize, and I don't have to worry about missing my mark.
I don't know, Tommy. Maybe you should go out for the role of Morris Levy.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, I can talk like him.
There we go.
Anyway, the bottom line, though, is that I'm just so honored and thrilled that this project is coming together. I really do mean that. It's been in the works a long time.
Do you have anybody that would be like your dream to play you?
Walter Brennan.
Well,
No.
I've got
No,
news.
listen, you know what it is? These young the casting directors that are doing movies now are so hip, and they know who all the young actors are. I'm way too old to play Tommy James. Don't kid yourself. But it's going to be fun watching, because the two main characters, of course, are myself and Morris Levy, the head of Roulette Records, who was every bit a gangster on one hand, but I miss the guy. I don't know what to say. You know, if it wasn't for Morris Levy, there wouldn't be a Tommy James. So I have very mixed feelings about Morris, you know. So it makes it an interesting story and a very human story, I think.
And it's a very, I think, indicative story of the record industry in the 60s also, because I'm pretty sure most bands had to deal with some sort of, maybe not the mob directly, but nefarious characters that didn't always have their best interests at heart.
And a lot of corruption.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the Beatles themselves weren't exempt, later in their career. So,
well, Morris Levy sued John Lennon, and John Lennon sued Morris Levy. That was one of the interesting catches in the 70s.
Oh, why?
Morris threatened him. He was going to, the bottom line was that Morris thought that one of John's songs, I believe it was Come Together, sounded too much like a Chuck Berry track that Morris had publishing on. And Morris then sued John Lennon because of it. And John settled with him. And one of the elements to the settlement was that John would record an album for Morris. And in the end, John wouldn't finish the album. And so Morris took a cassette tape of John's demos and put it out as an album. And John and Capitol Records went nuts and then sued Morris. And John won. And so Morris, at some point, threatened him, had him up to his farm in upstate New York, and threatened John. So anyway, the whole thing got crazy, and finally they worked it out. But it was really kind of scary there for a while.
That's a crazy story. Oh my God.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
But without that, I guess we wouldn't have.
True story.
It's rock and roll music, right? As the album.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, indeed. So anyway, this is an interesting business we're all in, isn't it?
Sure. I have one more question for you, Tommy. In the 60s, of course, we talk about how much we love the Beatles and all that, but did you ever see them as competition, in the music business?
No, I really didn't look at them that way. I always looked at them as teachers. I had great reverence for their music. They were like older brothers.
I would say you guys caught up, though, at least musically and sonically, with Crimson and Clover. And I know I talk about that album a lot, but it's so good. I love that album.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, I think this has been a wonderful chat, Tommy. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
My pleasure, and it was wonderful talking to you.
Looking forward to hearing you live and hopefully seeing you actually live.
This summer, yeah.
Sometime soon, yeah.
Well, thanks so much. It's been great talking with you.
All right, thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm alive, and I see things mighty clear today. I'm alive. I'm alive, and I'm breathing clean.
in now for our latest Beatles obsession. Erica, what's your latest Beatles obsession?
This one is less of a latest thing and more of a can't let it go. I saw Rocket Man ages ago, but I have this one movie fact check that I've got to get out of there because it's about the Beatles. So the movie claims that Elton John, who was born Reginald Dwight, took his stage name, his last name as a stage name from John Lennon. So in this movie, he tells Dick James when he's in his office for an interview that his first name is Elton and struggles for a last name until he spots a photo of the Beatles sitting in Dick James's office. And from there, he chooses a last name John for Elton John. So it's not actually true. I mean, they did get it right that he took his first name from his saxophonist Elton Dean, who was a bandmate of his in the band that he was in at the time called Bluesology. But the story that he took his last name from John Lennon isn't true. It didn't happen. In reality, it's a little bit weirder, actually, because he took his new last name from yet another Bluesology bandmate, vocalist Long John Baldry. Yeah, side note, so wouldn't that be weird? Like, if you were those guys and the guy in your band was like, I'm going to take your name and make my name and be super famous.
Yeah, especially when, I mean, not even the John part, because that's a common name, but the Elton part, that's pretty obvious, you know? And I think in Rocket Man, you know, the bandmate's like, that's my name. And Elton John's like, yeah, I know. And of course, you know, whatever, he seems to not care. But yeah, I would be like, especially seeing how famous Elton John got, I would definitely be like, hey, I need some royalties from my name or something.
No kidding. Maybe I'll change my name to Allison. What do you think?
I have a copyright on this. All Allisons pay me a royalty
nice.
to use my name.
Nice.
Yeah, it's my secret fortune that I never told you about.
Woman. Wow.
I am. Yeah, I plotted that out when I was 2.5. So it's been a nice little nest egg my whole life. So that's why
I have Kylie Jenner. Jesus.
Exactly. That's why I'm doing a Beatles podcast, because I have so much vast wealth to sit on. So.
So one more side note about the movie, which was another round the circle Beatles connection that I love. Elton John's legal middle name really is Hercules, but he didn't take it from Greek mythology. He actually took it from the horse from the British sitcom Steptoe and Son. Okay, great. But the Beatles connection here is that Steptoe and Son was headed up by Wilfrid Bramwell, who played Steptoe. And he was actually really famous for that role in England. And that role brought him to the attention of the Beatles producers, who ended up casting him as Paul's very clean old grandfather in A Hard Day's Night. So it all comes full circle. Yeah, and I always thought it was funny. It was like, oh, Hercules, like that's funny because you're naming yourself after like a Greek god. But no, it's actually after a horse in what was a really popular television show in Britain. Actually, the American show Sanford and Son was based on it. So we got a version of it here too.
Oh, right. That's a great show. Yeah. So Elton John's real name is Reginald Hercules Dwight.
No, his real name, well, I don't know what his middle name originally was. His original name was Reginald Dwight. I don't know if he had a middle name, but
so he gave himself Hercules.
He gave himself the name Hercules. Yeah, that was his.
Oh, I thought his parents did. Okay, never mind that.
That'd be also very funny.
I know. That's why I was like, oh, honey, we're going to name our baby, our baby the middle name Hercules after this horse. Like that was the thing that was cracking me up.
That's funny too. However you look at it, it's ridiculous to name yourself Hercules as your middle name. Wherever
that's
it comes
true.
from.
That's
whoever.
That's very funny.
So that is what I can't let it go. What about you?
I love it. So I have to just talk about something that happened to me a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, but my dear friend Andrew gave me what I think is probably the greatest gift I'll ever get, which is Brian Epstein's autograph.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I've never owned anything that Brian touched or, was even remotely close to. But Andrew went to the WFMU Record Fair in New York past spring and found it and brought it back to its, rightful home. I will treasure it and take care of it the rest of my life, but it is just beautiful. And, it's very inspiring and, I'm just so grateful to him. So shout out to Andrew. He will be on the podcast at some point.
Yay.
And then, so that was going to be my only Beatles obsession because what else do I need really? But literally this afternoon, I was driving through Burbank and something caught my eye. This turquoise car caught my eye, and it had a sign on the side. And as I drove past, it looked like a guy in a Beatle wig on the side of this car. And I looked, and it said Mr. Beatle beside this photo of a guy in a Beatle wig. And it's apparently this guy who lives in LA, and he goes under the stage name Mr. Beatle. And the sign says, the full sign says, Mr. Beatle, singer/entertainer, available for events here, there, and everywhere.
Oh my God.
Has the phone number, and then www.mrbeatle.com. So you can go and check him out for yourself. But I'm dying because, I mean, first of all, it's ridiculous. Second of all, like, his whole thing on his website is, you know, if you can't afford a full Beatles tribute band, you know, why not just hire one guy?
Oh my
and
God.
he's not any specific Beatle. He's a generic Beatle.
What?
Like, which makes me laugh so hard.
He's a generic Beatle. That's
He's a generic Beatle.
That's beyond.
Yeah. Yeah, like, I want him to come and be like one of the Beau Brummels or one of the Robs, like anybody who could have passed as a Beatle. Like, I just want that. Like, I mean, I'm just so obsessed with him now. And I haven't gotten a chance to read the full website. I sort of skimmed the front page.
I just went there.
Oh, yeah? Are you dying?
His whole pitch is about money.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
You'll spend less than 25% of what a full band would cost.
Oh my God. Yes, that makes mathematical sense, Mr. Beatle.
And you know that can't be bad.
Oh God. I'm going to feel bad. I hope he's not a listener. We're doing this with love, Mr. Beatle. Like, my birthday's coming up. If you want to come to my party, that would be great. But yeah, I like died. Had to make that part of my Beatles obsession because I'm going to be obsessed with Mr. Beatle, especially since he apparently lives in my hood.
He has a lot of samples on his SoundCloud, so we're going to share this with everybody, and hopefully somebody will hire him for something.
Oh my God, we have to. Oh my God, I'll have to go listen to his samples. I'm so excited.
Me too.
Oh, shit. Oh my God. Well, on that note, on that Mr. Beatle note, thank you for listening to this podcast called Because the Beatles. As always, subscribe to us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening right now, and give us a rating/review so other Beatle maniacs can find us.
And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll be posting photos and more from this episode and beyond. Look out for Mr. Beatle because he's coming to you.
Hell yeah.
And remember, you can always email us at bcthebeatles@gmail.com too. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.